This training covers Chapter 10, Creating Standardized Recipes. This training is presented by the Oregon Department of Education Child Nutrition Programs, also known as ODE CMP. In this training, we will answer what is a standardized recipe, the elements of a standardized recipe, creating a standardized recipe, and the steps it entails, including creating a crediting statement, using the food buying guide, and additional supporting documentation as needed. Finally, we will end with updating a standardized recipe and best practices. After this training, we hope you will understand the required elements in a standardized recipe and you will know how to create a standardized recipe. First, what is a standardized recipe? A standardized recipe is one that has been tried, adapted, and retried at least 3 times, and it produces the same results and yield each time. Standardized recipes are required for homemade combination foods. These are foods that are prepared from multiple ingredients in a sponsor or vendor-operated kitchen. Standardized recipes always provide a crediting statement that shows the amount contribution to each meal component per serving. There are some elements that must be included in a written standardized recipe. It must include the name of the recipe, the ingredients with measurements. The measurements must be either weight or volume to ensure consistency. You will also want to have the form of each ingredient, for example, whether your meat is raw or cooked, what type of beef you are using, or if the spinach you are using are fresh or frozen. Additional information required will include serving size, yield, this is the total number of servings in a recipe, the crediting statement, this is the meal component contribution, and of course, complete instructions. Let's take a look at this recipe. It includes the name of the recipe, spicy rice casserole. It also has ingredients with the form, and it has the measurements with the weight and volume. There's also 2 different yields on this recipe, one for 64 servings and one for 128 servings. And very importantly, it also has a crediting statement, which shows that 1 serving provides 1.75 ounces of meat alternate, 0.75 ounce equivalents of grains, and a 1/4 cup of vegetables. And finally, it also includes the instructions. On the second page, the instructions continue. The serving size of 1 cup is listed. This means that 1 cup of this recipe will provide all the meal pattern component contributions listed on the top of the first page. And for good measure, it also includes the yield again. This recipe includes all the information you would need from a standardized recipe. Sponsors who are looking for pre-made standardized recipes can check out foodhero.org, which is where this spicy rice casserole recipe is from, or the ICN.org, which has hundreds of USDA-credited standardized recipes. The goal of a standardized recipe is to show how your homemade combination food credits towards the CACFP meal pattern, and ideally makes your cook's life easier as well. To meet these goals, keep these tips in mind. The name of the recipe should match with the name of the food item listed on the working menu. This helps reviewers make sure you are serving the right items and helps your cooks pick out the right recipe to make that day. The form of ingredients is very important since crediting amounts will vary depending on the specific product you are using. For example, a raw whole chicken will have much less lean meat per pound compared to a diced cooked chicken breast. Remember that measurements must be based on volume or weight, not on the number of items. 2 carrots can make up 2 cups of carrots or barely a 1/4 cup. It depends on how big the carrots are, so always provide a volume or weight measurement. If you serve multiple age groups, you may be serving multiple serving sizes. If that's the case, make sure that your recipe lists all the different serving sizes for all the age groups served. And finally, if you are using commercially prepared combination foods as ingredients in your recipe, make sure to save a copy of the child nutrition label or product formulation statement for that food item in your records. It's time for a quick knowledge check. What is a standardized recipe? Is it a recipe that has been tried and tested and produces the same results and yield each time? Is it a recipe that provides yield, ingredients, and instructions? Or is it a recipe with standard ingredients? Or is it a recipe that meets standard tastes? The answer is a recipe that has been tried and tested and produces the same results and yield each time. While B is somewhat correct, the description can also apply to non-standardized recipes as well. A standardized recipe must have consistent results that can validate the crediting statement. Here's another knowledge check. Which of the following is not a requirement in a standardized recipe? Is it a crediting statement, yield, ingredients with volume or weight measurements, or descriptions of the recipe? And the answer is D, descriptions of the recipe. All the other answers, crediting statements, yield, ingredients with volume or weight measurements, are required in a standardized recipe. Let's go through and figure out how to create a standardized recipe. There are 5 major steps that must be taken. First is recipe verification, then creating a crediting statement. Once that's done, product evaluation should be conducted, after which some quantity adjustments and/or updates to crediting may be necessary. Finally, once all those steps have been completed, it's time to finalize the standardized recipe and conduct some double checks. The recipe verification step starts with identifying the recipe you want to use. You may have a new recipe that was suggested by your community, or you may have some new food items you want to try. In all cases, you will want to check that the ingredients listed on the recipe are available in the quantities you need and will be available for you to purchase. Next, you want to review the recipe in detail and update to meet the requirements of a standardized recipe. This may include changing measurements to weights or volume, adding details on ingredient forms, checking that recipe instructions are clear and make sense based on the ingredients listed. Finally, can you verify the yield? When you look at the serving size and the instructions, can you get the same number of servings as the recipe states? For example, you may have a recipe that results in 1 cup serving sizes with 12 servings per recipe, but the amount of ingredients only add up to 6 cups. All of these steps work together to make sure that the recipe is internally consistent and a good candidate for standardization. Here's an example of a very simple recipe: peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, also known as PB&J. PB&J is considered a homemade combination food since it includes both bread and peanut butter, which can credit for the grains and meat alternate components. This very basic recipe will need a little bit of work to become a standardized recipe. Let's go through the recipe verification steps and see what edits need to be made. First, take a look at the ingredients and see if the ingredients are readily available from your vendors. In this case, whole grain bread, peanut butter, and grape jam are likely to be available. If it is not available or you want a nut-free recipe, you might want to consider another recipe or switch out some ingredients, for example, switching to sunflower seed butter instead. Next, check the form of the ingredients. Since bread, peanut butter, and jam do not have many different forms, you don't need to change anything for this recipe. After that, check the measurements of your ingredients and, if necessary, change them to weights or volume. The measurements for the bread is by bag, while the peanut butter and jam are by jar. How many slices of bread are in each bag, and how large are the jars? You will need to find out and update the recipe. After checking your pantries or your vendor receipts, you might see that the bags of bread include 12 1-ounce slices each, so you will have 24 1-ounce slices of whole grain bread. In your pantry, you also see that the peanut butter and jam are in 32-ounce jars. You update the ingredients to include the jar sizes. Next, you are going to check the instructions and make sure there are clear measurements as well. The instructions do not list the amount of peanut butter to use nor the amount of jam. While jam is not a creditable ingredient, it will also be helpful to include measurements so you can control costs and make sure that each participant is getting a consistent product. Update the recipe to include the amount of peanut butter and jam, and in this case, you see that you will need about 4 tablespoons of peanut butter to ensure sufficient crediting for the meat alternate component. Finally, check your yield. You only have 24 slices of bread and you need 2 slices of bread per serving. So you won't have enough to make 24 sandwiches. Instead, you only have enough to make 12 sandwiches. Update the recipe to reflect this change. At this point, you have finished the first step of recipe verification. The next step is to create a crediting statement. All standardized recipes must have a crediting statement showing the meal pattern contribution to each component. Recipe creators must identify the ingredients that will contribute to the meal pattern. This is the grains, meat alternates, fruits, and vegetable components. Note that while fluid milk is a meal pattern component, it is not creditable when it is added to a recipe, except in smoothies. In the case of our PB&J, the ingredients that contribute to the meal pattern will be the bread, which contributes to the grain component, and the peanut butter, which contributes to the meat alternate component. Finally, you will want to calculate out how much each creditable ingredient, the bread and the peanut butter, contributes to each meal pattern component. To do that, you will need to use the Food Buying Guide, also known as the FBG for short. The Food Buying Guide is the USDA resource for determining creditable portions for food items from all meal components. On the screen is an image of the Food Buying Guide homepage. A link to the web page is available in the description section below. There are many tools and resources available on this online database, but the one that will be most helpful in figuring out crediting information for individual food items will be the food item search. If you click on the food item search button, it will bring you to a page where you can enter in your keywords. In this case, we entered in peanut butter. Once you hit search, a list of different food items will show up, and you will read the description under the Food as Purchased column and the Purchase Unit column to find an item that best meets the description of the item you will procure for your recipe. In this case, most of the items under Food as Purchased are identical, but under Purchase Unit, you will see 2 items that have 32-ounce containers, which is the same size you have on hand. You'll want to choose the purchase unit that best matches the products you have available, since this will help you in your calculations. Which of these 2 do you click on? Take a look at the servings per purchase unit column and the serving size per meal contribution, and you will see that they have different numbers of servings per unit, and this is because one of them is using 2 tablespoon servings and the other is using 3 tablespoon servings. Your recipe calls for 4 tablespoon servings, so using the 2 tablespoon serving version will make it easier for you to do the math, since 4 tablespoons can be easily divided by 2 tablespoons. Click on the blue food item name for the listing that best matches your ingredient. And it will take you to the food item details. The food item details provide a lot of information on how the food item credits for the meal pattern. At the very top, it tells you what meal component the food item will credit towards. In this case, peanut butter will credit for the meat alternate component. Next, if you go down to the purchase unit, you will see that 32-ounce container is the purchase unit, and under that, the servings per purchase unit EP tells you that you can get 28.8 servings out of a 32-ounce container. The EP stands for edible portion. Remember that anytime you have a non-whole number, you will always want to round down. So you only have 28 servings, not 29 servings per jar. Rounding down helps to ensure that you meet the full serving size for all portions. Next, moving down to serving size per meal contribution, you will see that 2 tablespoons nut seed butter provides 1 ounce meat alternate. This is the crediting information providing you with information on how much your ingredient will contribute to the meal component. In this case, towards the meat alternate component. If 2 tablespoons equal 1 ounce meat alternate, your 4 tablespoons will equal 2 ounces meat alternate. This is the information you came for, but let's look a little more and see what other information is provided. Moving down to the purchase units for 100 servings. This is helpful information, especially for cooks or purchasers who serve a lot of participants at a time. It tells you how many 32-ounce containers you need to buy if you want to serve 100 servings of 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. You would need 3.5 jars. If you were serving 100 servings of 4 tablespoons of peanut butter, you would need to double it to 7 jars. Finally, under additional information, they will sometimes present the same information in the serving size per meal contribution in different ways. In this example, it shows that 2 tablespoons is equal to 1.1 ounce nut butter. This would be helpful information if you wanted to figure out how many tablespoons you would get from a jar of peanut butter that is not 32 ounces. Now that you have your peanut butter crediting information, you can review your recipe again. Since 2 tablespoons of peanut butter equals 1 ounce equivalent meat alternate, 4 tablespoons of peanut butter will equal 2 ounce equivalent meat alternate, shortened to MA here. Next, check if the amount of ingredients listed will cover the total amount needed in your instructions. The recipe has one 32-ounce jar of peanut butter. You will compare with the servings per purchase unit, which shows that there are 28 servings of 1 ounce meat alternate per jar, and if you want 2 ounce equivalent meat alternate, you will need to divide 28 by 2 to equal 14 servings. Compare this to your current number of servings, and you have 12 sandwiches. 12 is less than 14, so that means that your 32-ounce jar of peanut butter will have enough peanut butter to make 12 sandwiches. If this was not the case, you would need to update your ingredients to increase the number of jars or the size of the jar to make sure you have enough peanut butter to make all the sandwiches in this recipe. Now that you have checked your instructions and ingredients to make sure the crediting makes sense, you can add in your crediting statement, which states that each sandwich credits for 2 ounce equivalent meat alternates and 2 ounce equivalent grains. While we didn't go through the whole process with the grains component, if you know that 1 ounce of bread is equal to 1 ounce equivalent of the grains component, it is easy to figure out that 2 1-ounce slices of bread per sandwich equals 2 ounce equivalent of grains. This is an easy example, but what if you had a more complicated recipe where you have several different ingredients that credit towards the meat alternate component and several ingredients that credit towards the vegetable component? You can also use the food item search in the food buying guide and credit each ingredient one by one. Or you can use the recipe analysis workbook, which is also known as the RAW. The recipe analysis workbook is also a tool in the food buying guide and helps to calculate out crediting information for each component of your recipe. You can enter in multiple ingredients along with the portions, and the tool calculates out the crediting information for you. To access this tool, go to the Food Buying Guide homepage. Look on the right side of the page right above the image of milk. This tool is only available if you have a login. Sponsors who want a tutorial on how to use the Recipe Analysis Workbook can check out USDA's Recipe Analysis Workbook training, which will cover this tool in more depth. The link to the training is available in the description section below. While the peanut butter and jelly sandwich recipe uses simple ingredients, sometimes your recipes will use processed combination foods, also known as commercially purchased combination foods, such as breaded chicken cutlets or meatballs. In these situations, you will need to have additional supporting documentation. Commercially purchased combination foods require a child nutrition label or a product formulation statement in order to document the crediting for different components. The supporting documentation training in Chapter 10 will have more information on these types of supporting documentation. When you have commercially prepared combination foods in a homemade recipe, while standardizing the recipe, it is important to list the same name on the ingredient list as stated in the child nutrition label or product formulation statement. It is also important to indicate in the recipe's crediting statement the amount that the commercially prepared combination food contributes to the meal components. Once you finish crediting the recipe, it's time to try it out with some product evaluations. The product evaluation is an important step since making the recipe will allow you to see if the instructions are clear and the end result meets your expectations with regard to serving size and acceptability. It is always recommended to try out new recipes with a taste test for both staff and participants, but this is not required. USDA has many resources for taste testing events, including stickers that can be ordered for free, like the ones shown on the slide. Oftentimes, the product evaluation may be helpful in providing feedback on whether ingredients need to be switched up or have amounts and timing adjusted due to taste or how well a product holds up over the course of a serving session. This brings us to our next step, which is quantity adjustment and update crediting. In some cases, your recipe comes out perfectly and no edits need to be made, in which case this step can be skipped. But most of the time, product evaluations will show that some changes need to be made. Maybe it's that you need less salt in the recipe or that your participants didn't like the type of cheese in your recipe. While not all recipe changes will require an update to your crediting, you must update your crediting statement if there are changes to your ingredients, the amount of your ingredients, the serving sizes, and the yield. Changes to any of these elements may change your crediting statement. Let's go back to our peanut butter and jelly sandwich. After your product evaluation, you got feedback from both the staff and participants that the sandwich was too messy. The teachers asked if you could decrease the amount of peanut butter in the sandwich so that they are not cleaning up peanut butter from everything. Looking at your instructions, you decide to decrease the amount of peanut butter to 2 tablespoons. You know that this will halve your crediting to only 1 ounce equivalent meat alternate, so you decide that you will throw in a 1 ounce cheese stick to be served with the sandwich so you can make up that 1 ounce of meat alternate. You update the instructions for 2 tablespoons of peanut butter and add that it must be served with a 1 ounce cheese stick. After looking at the instructions, you will want to check your ingredients. Are there any changes you need to make here? You did not change any ingredients, and one 32-ounce jar of peanut butter will still give you enough peanut butter to make 12 sandwiches, so you do not need to make any changes. However, since this results in a lot of peanut butter left over, it may help with inventory to state that this will use approximately half a jar only. Now you are ready to update your crediting statement to reflect the changes to your sandwich and the addition of the cheese stick. You update the crediting statement so that each sandwich credits for 1 ounce equivalent meat alternate and 2 ounce equivalents grain. and you add in that the cheese stick credits for 1 ounce equivalent meat alternate. If you are wondering whether the cheese stick needs to be added to this standardized recipe, it does not. After all, you can serve the peanut butter and jelly sandwich with other meat or meat alternates, and for some age groups, 1 ounce meat alternate is enough to meet portion size requirements. However, it is always a good practice to set your cooking staff up for success by providing information that will help them serve a fully reimbursable meal. Showing that the peanut butter and jelly sandwich must be served with a cheese stick will help the staff realize that the 1 ounce equivalent meat alternate provided by the sandwich is not enough for some of the age groups served. Once you have completed the quantity adjustments and updated crediting, it's time to finalize the standardized recipe. You may want to complete more product evaluations, in which case you will move back to step 3 and may need to go through more quantity adjustments afterward. Or you may be ready to put that standardized recipe into your binder and put that into service. If so, always double check the recipe to ensure that you have all required information. The name of the recipe, the ingredients with form and measurements, these are the weights or volumes, the serving size, the yield, the crediting statement, and complete instructions. If you have a separate food purchaser, it's always a good idea to check in with them to make sure that products will be available when you plan to cook up the recipe. Let's try one more knowledge check. What tool in the food buying guide allows you to look up crediting information for individual food items? Is it the recipe analysis workbook, the food item search, the FBG calculator, or food items favorites? The answer is food items search. This will be the most helpful tool if you are looking for crediting information for individual food items. The recipe analysis workbook is more helpful for crediting multiple food items when you want to credit a recipe with multiple ingredients. The FBG calculator helps you to create a shopping list. The food item favorites is available for those who have a login to save specific food items that they reference frequently. There may be times when you want to update a standardized recipe. This may be a recipe that you standardized in your kitchen, or a Food Hero or Institute of Child Nutrition standardized recipe that isn't working out well for you. If you adjust a standardized recipe, especially for ingredients that credit towards the meal component, it's likely you will need to update crediting and go through that step all over again. Sometimes you may need to pull up the Food Buying Guide's food item search to search for crediting information if you are substituting out new ingredients. You will always want to check the instructions to make sure that the instructions align with your current practices for this recipe. And of course, make sure that you are always reviewing that crediting statement to see if it reflects all the changes to your ingredients, instructions, yields, and serving sizes. With CECFP, it's always important to document all changes. Write down all changes in your revised standardized recipes. As a best practice, adding in food safety guidelines such as holding temperatures and HACCP information can help your cooking staff make sure they are serving safe products to your participants. Having equipment information on the recipe can help menu planners decide what recipes should be served together. If you only have so much oven space, you may not want to have 3 recipes that all use an oven on the same day. Including cooking and preparation time will also be helpful for planning labor hours. How much time will your cooks need to get this meal ready? Standardized recipes are tried and tested, and it's always a good idea to test the recipes at least 3 times to make sure that the recipe will come out the way you plan. Purchasers and cooking staff should also periodically check the ingredients they are using or buying to make sure that the packaging or formulation has not changed. Sometimes a 32-ounce jar shows up as a 28-ounce jar. And if cooks want to flex their creative muscles, encourage them to be creative with non-creditable ingredients such as herbs and spices. Cooks must always follow the recipe for all the creditable ingredients to ensure that the crediting statement provided on the recipe is valid. Anytime a creditable ingredient is substituted or the amount of ingredient is changed, crediting statements must be updated as well. In this training, we covered the definition of a standardized recipe, all the required elements of a standardized recipe, how to create a standardized recipe with a focus on creating a crediting statement, using the food buying guide, and the situations when you would need additional supporting documentation. We ended this session by going over how to update a standardized recipe, along with some best practices. ODE supports equity and excellence for every learner. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. Thank you for taking this training.